Let's talk, Jeff, about market timing. There seem to be a lot of people out there with what I think is a fantasy that they can call the bottom of the market and magically buy at the bottom.
Well, that's always, I mean, you find the same thing in housing and in stocks, both of which are, what we're in right now, I think, partially is a reality check, much as we had in March of 2000 with regard to the stock market and the Nasdaq more particularly.
That was a big reality check.
Oh, sure, it was because we realized you can't have stocks that have increased value when the company hasn't shown a dime in profit yet, and that eventually all got corrected, and now I think the stock market's not going to do that again, and I think maybe we're going through a similar correction of sorts, and while the home is and will always be the best investment that somebody can make, it's not a short-term investment. It's a long-term investment, or it's a mid-term investment. And that's not to say it's not a good investment. And you should only be living in the home that you're buying, because there's a lot. It will always be a great investment, either on a small or large scale. But it's not a quick hit type thing. And too many people were seeing it as that over these last few years. And so I think the market is now adjusting for that. What was the original question?
What should people think about market timing? What's the reality that you can predict the bottom?
Oh yeah.
Should people be waiting?
Right, and that's where I was going.
Question. A lot of them want to think they should wait, that somehow something magical is going to happen while they wait.
Right, and that's why I was giving you the analogy of the stocks, because we all know people who think they know the bottom of a certain stock or a sector, and by the time they get the quinones to jump in and make the move, they've missed the bottom. And the same is going to be with homes. We feel we're at the bottom. I've spoken to another.
You're gambling on that with a lot of money. You're starting up a company and building.
We do that knowing that the market may or may not be at the bottom. Once we did that, and we think we're taking enough steps to keep ourselves in a right position to ride this out. One big difference between us and everybody else out there is that we didn't have a company dragging into this. Just made to take that. So we don't have, we didn't have a bunch of overhead that we had to unload. We didn't have a bunch of
you could really price to market
inventory.
In other words,
well, we can price to market, yeah, but more importantly, we can do that and not have to worry about these other albatrosses pulling us down, as anybody else naturally would. We know that if we still had the Concord, or we were still in business all this time, and this market had come to us, we would have had to adjust just like everybody else. It would have been painful. And thankfully, we haven't had to do that, and we think we have ourselves at a lean enough situation that we can sort of ride it out until things pick up. So when is the bottom? Nobody ever knows when the bottom is until it's gone. And if you're waiting, at the risk of sounding like a salesperson or sounding like I'm just passing rhetoric, now is always the best time to buy, because home prices go up, and if they dip down, it's just an aberration. It's a correction. It's like anything else. But in the stock market and the housing market, over time, will always have an upward curve. And the person who is waiting for the bottom is going to miss it. And if my colleagues and I are correct, we're all feeling that we're probably there right now. We're certainly not ready to talk about any more discounting, and I don't think you're going to see that much more. Rates are so low at this point that I don't know if there's as much of an effect on those that are now being brought into the market by an affordability factor becoming created because the rates are coming down to a certain point, versus that skittishness that just the general market has to move forward regardless of rates and prices and so on. Part of the problem has been is that these builders have been out there advertising in big red and black letters, all these giveaways and these incentives and everything else, and that gives the impression to the buyer that there's a lot more of that out there, and I haven't hit the bottom yet, and I'm not going to get the advantage of an uptick in value like I normally would think I would with a new home. Not correctly so, but I think that's part of the mentality out there.